In one of his teachings, Jesus describes a person tossed off a boat with a millstone around their neck. A millstone is a large donut-shaped rock that was used by ancient people for grinding. The scenario that Jesus is describing is basically equivalent to walking the plank in a suit of armor. It'll make for a very short swim. And Jesus goes on to declare that even armored swimming is better for a person's long-term health than sinning. More specifically, it's better than sinning in ways that, quote, cause one of these little ones to stumble. If you find that statement disconcerting, you're not the only one. It's particularly strange coming from a guy who obsesses over lost sheep, a guy that rumor called a friend of sinners. Friendship doesn't normally involve sending someone down the plank. Jesus is clearly worked up about something here. So who are these little ones on his mind, and what is he so worried about being done to them? Well, we could all probably make our own lists of millstone-worthy crimes. Genocide, human trafficking, torture, dating app ghosting. If these were the things Jesus was thinking about, it would be very convenient for the majority of us who just play in the sinner amateur leagues. We're just over here lying to our bosses, buying too many shoes and drinking too much and telling bad jokes. Petty crimes, basically. If you really want to understand what's going on in a Bible passage, sometimes you have to look at what's happening around the passage you're currently reading. In this case, if we widen that lens, we might notice that the last thing Jesus talked about before bringing up millstones was money. He just finished telling a story about a rich man and a beggar. The little one who's meant to still be on our minds is Lazarus, the beggar in that story. Jesus' title, Friend of Sinners, is a testament to his reputation for scandalous graciousness. There's no one he's afraid to be seen with. There's no one he'll write off as hopeless. But graciousness to sinners shouldn't be confused with indifference to sin. One error is to believe any sin is too big to forgive. Another error is to believe that any sin is too small to be costly. The story of the rich man and Lazarus shows the problem with our math. Our tendency to write off some kinds of sins as the sort that barely matter. That rich man in the story didn't hit Lazarus with his car and keep on driving. He didn't let his Doberman use Lazarus as a chew toy until he found somewhere else to sleep. The guy is just a self-absorbed normie with a taste for Wagyu who's caught up in his ambition of having more hair and money than his brother-in-law. It's a misdemeanor at best, with no malicious intent. Yet the real-world result is that Lazarus stays hungry and ends up in an early grave. The stakes are almost always higher than they appear to us. Sin is an act that opens a door to death. By definition, that's what it does. The trouble is, we often don't see the door we're cracking. A little lie, a little arm twisting, a little overindulging. We give ourselves a pass because we know we're not that bad. And we don't think the consequences to others are likely to be that bad either. But Jesus knows better. He's seen the interconnections we miss. He sees what's slipping through the doors that we crack open. Jesus tells his followers, no matter what, bad stuff is going to happen sometimes that will mess up life for people. Think famines, fires, armies, illness, and corruption. There are lots of ways Lazarus might end up lying outside, sick and hungry. But Jesus says, woe to those whose actions and inactions add to the tragedy. However Lazarus got here, he only stayed here because someone who could have helped him didn't. The rich man was there every day. He had more than enough for both of them, but he was too busy with his own cravings to think about Lazarus's growling stomach. Lazarus ends up dying of a petty crime. It's not just the big stuff that ushered death in. Futures are lost through careless words. Envy can derail a whole life's mission. Seeping contempt for others poisons community. Loneliness literally kills people, while hundreds of others nearby keep scrolling on their phones. Someone somewhere is making our clothes faster, cheaper. Everything we say and do and don't shape a world that we and others must live in. And what looks small from where we're standing doesn't necessarily look small to the beggar next to the gate. Jesus doesn't bring this up to ruin anyone's coffee. He does this so we get serious about helping each other change the pattern. If you see another disciple cracking the door to death, Jesus says, for heaven's sake, don't just stand there watching them do it. Help them shut the door. Changing patterns is always difficult and complicated. It takes time and practice. That's why Jesus says we should be ready to forgive and restore and help someone shut the same door 7 times a day, if that's what it takes. Jesus isn't looking to put a giant rock around anyone's neck. He's trying to get us to take seriously the small rocks we're carelessly adding to our neighbor's already dangerously full pockets. It's not just the big sins that sink Lazarus, it's the small ones. It might not be the big changes, but the small ones that will keep the next Lazarus from going under. Let's hear what Jesus has to say in Luke 17, verses 1 to 4. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "There will always be occasions for stumbling, but what sorrow awaits the person by whom they come? It would be better to be thrown in the sea with a millstone hung around your neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So watch yourselves. If another believer sins, rebuke that person. Then if there's repentance, forgive. Even if that person wrongs you 7 times a day, and each time turns again and asks forgiveness, you must forgive." I'm Meghan Larissa Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. Thanks so much for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and we'll see you next time.